All right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Good in the Head podcast. Today, as a guest, I've invited my good friend Ference onto the show. He is someone that I met through a holiday dinner at my sister's house, actually.
Yeah.
He and his wife and their girls are friends with my sister and her family. And it was sort of fortuitous, really. It was almost too synchronistic to not be meant to be when it happened. It was perfect timing. Ference is a financial advisor and a highly successful one at that. He has a radio show, website, business, and he has empowered my wife and I to uh, get a grasp on our finances and gain clarity in the direction where we want to be headed, and has provided some suggestions and tools to us to use on our way to that point where we can then begin to invest through him. And the beauty of our relationship is I really admire you because you didn't go in and try to sell us anything. You said, where are you at now?
Right.
And then you said, well, you're not ready to invest with me yet, but here's what you do to get there. And I thought that was very transparent and honest and super empowering for us. You suggested that we get a hold of a credit card with 0% interest rate,
Right.
put all of our debt onto that. And we didn't even know they existed before we talked to you, and
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of other people don't as well.
Probably not.
And it's gotten us ahead of the game. That with a few refinancing situations and opportunities that have come up with this current housing market and everything going on has really helped us out a lot. So I want
Awesome.
to welcome you to the show, and thank you so much for being a guest here today, Ference.
Well, Pete, thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here. I'm excited too.
Awesome. Yeah, that fortuitous experience of our meeting at my sister's house was interesting because I really wasn't going to go that day. And I don't go anywhere without my wife. But that
Right.
day she wasn't feeling well, and I just felt pulled. I felt the need to be there for some reason, which is abnormal for me. And
Hmm.
I've learned to sort of listen to that gut instinct and that intuition. And when I showed up and we began talking, it lasted what, 2.5, 3 hours, getting to
Yeah,
know
we
each
were
other.
we were hanging around the grill.
It was awesome. It was a really
Exactly.
good time.
Yes.
Um, it was interesting because all the questions I asked as I was getting to know you on a more personal level, it made me connect with you very quickly because of how honest and transparent you really are. You're like a good old boy. You're down to earth, raised in a small town. Can you
Right.
give the audience sort of a background of yours?
Sure. Yeah. Like you said, Pete, I was raised on a horse farm in Missouri. Never traveled anywhere until I joined the military. And I actually served in the old guard, served at the White House, and all the presidential, you know, the spit and polish, as they call it. So I met a lot of presidents and all that stuff. I was a musician, and then from there, basically after I got out of the military, went to college, got a job with the government. Absolutely hated it. Decided to go into business for myself, and so yes, I've been in the financial industry, like you said, Pete, actually 23 years now. But I really don't look at myself as a financial person so much as an entrepreneur because I'd read some books and I had a motivation to get into business for myself. And right out of college, I bought an existing plant nursery called Paradise Nursery in Glendale. And I was 24 years old and learned a lot of experience, a lot of, bought a business from an existing guy and learned a lot about business, of course. I got hit by the Gulf War, went through some real financial challenges, which I share with people. I openly, something I share when I talk to folks and workshops. I always say, look, somebody says they've done everything perfectly. They're either never done anything or they're lying. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, and so from there, got into various different things, and eventually, I was a contractor for a while till I got injured in the back in a car accident. So then got into real estate investing, and then now the financial agency. And actually, about 2 years ago, I got to jump into something kind of fun. I got invited to be on the board of a FDIC insured bank. I'm the chairman of the board of a bank in formation, and we're crossing our fingers. We're hoping to open up in somewhere either in Scottsdale or Chandler. So in the next year or so.
To bring some perspective to that, explain to the audience how rare it is for a new bank to open and kind of the numbers behind that.
Yeah, so since 0809, there have been about a dozen banks that have opened in the United States, literally. So it's a very, very rare thing. And so there's definitely a need for local community banks. They've just been decimated. And so we're trying to, get that started again. And there's only, I think in Arizona, some of the statistics that I've seen, there's like 8 or 9 Arizona-based banks left. And what made me kind of motivated to get involved with it, it was interesting for one, but two, over 50% of small business loans in Arizona in 2019 at least were funded by those 7 or 8, 9 banks. In other words, the big banks don't really service the average entrepreneur. In fact, most of them have limits of like $2 or $3 million in terms of minimum loan size for a commercial loan. Well, your average small business, that's just way up their league. The average community bank is a commercial loan is like 300,000. So that's why if you go to a big bank and you're an entrepreneur and you want a loan to expand your business or whatever, it's almost next to impossible to get one. And they generally, what do? They issue you a credit card or give you a line of credit on your house or something. So that was my motivation to get involved with that. It helps. It just helps the community.
Nice. So the entire purpose behind this bank that you're now a part of is to bring it to fruition and then tailor to the needs of smaller businesses who can't get a huge, massive, minimal $2 million loan.
Exactly. And there's a profit motive too. Of course, the bank would be profitable. So it's got a dual focus.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What are the struggles that you've had since, say the day you were born up till now, and the lessons that you learned from them that were the most valuable to you?
Well, I'd say the biggest struggle I've ever had in my life, that one's very easy. When I was 7 years old, my dad was killed, died in a drowning accident. And that's something that impacted the next 20 plus years of my life in a very big way. I was raised by a single mom. There's a real lack of direction. It was tough, and we grew up, we were upper middle class. Suddenly now we're very much lower middle class. Okay. So we struggled. We had a farm. We raised pretty much all our own food to live. So I know what it's like to work and struggle and scratch and to survive and not really know that's why I joined the Army. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And the military was actually one of the best things I did. It gave me confidence and direction in my life so that I recognized that, being pushed beyond what you think you can do, which is what they're good at, made me realize, hey, I can do a lot. If I set my mind to something, I can actually accomplish this. So after I left the military, then I went to college, got a degree. Then like I said earlier, bought an existing business. And then actually since then, I've actually started 4. Yeah, I've started 3 companies since. Like I mentioned, the contracting business, real estate business, and I can't remember, something else. I'm forgetting about one at the moment. It'll come back to me. And then, the financial agency 23 years ago. So, they always say, what is it? Small Business Administration says 50% of small businesses fail in the first 5 years, right? Yep. And primarily due to lack of capital and lack of knowledge. Those are the 2 main reasons, according to the SBA, right? So I knew the odds were stacked against me, but I drew on that experience of that confidence building I got from the military that, if I put my head down, go to work, get some mentors, which I did, and learn what I need to learn and do what I need to do, I can make it work. And I did.
Now you mentioned the word mentors. One of the other main benefits that we've gotten from just knowing you, besides the 0% interest rate credit card, was an answer to a question I had asked you about uh, what are your secrets of success? And you said two things, you know,
Hmm.
uh, the content, I read a lot, and then the
Hmm.
people that I spend the most time around.
We hear that all the time. We're common. You've heard this. We're well, 80% of who we are is really about the people we hang out with. We're the top 5 people you hang out with in your life, that you spend the most time with. And are they bringing you up or are they dragging you
Mm-hmm.
down? And that's a tough thing, because I had some tough family relationships that I had to curtail due to the fact that, well, they were bringing me down, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the books you read. Um, I'm a, I became a voracious reader. And I was not a big reader initially. I was one of those, get out of college, I don't want to read again kind of thing attitude. But a guy recommended who became a mentor later, a book by Og Mandino. It's called The Greatest Miracle in the World. And that was the very first book I read. And he's still my favorite author today, because he shares success ideas in a story format.
Mm-hmm.
And stories grab people's attention. And they're small books. If you've ever seen any of them, Og Mandino's written a whole series of books. Greatest Salesman in the World. I mean, you just name it. There's 20 or 30 of them at least.
Huh.
But they're all simple, short books. It was such a riveting story. I literally couldn't I stayed up till like 2 o'clock that morning, read the books start to finish. And
Interesting.
that got me started on my journey of reading.
Wow. There's another book called The Richest Man in Babylon that
Yep, another
kind of
great one.
put to a story. And yeah, that's interesting. I don't think that I've actually read any of his books yet, but now that you bring
Grab
that
an
up,
Og Mandino book. My favorite happened to be the very first one I read, which was The Greatest Miracle in the
that's
World. Still my
so
favorite.
cool. What are you reading right now?
Ooh, I'm actually I just bought like 3 books this week, so I just finished up. What was it? Actually, I just was rereading some of the. I like the classics. The Dale Carnegie. That one I was rereading. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Actually, I
Mhm.
was just going back through some stuff in it. I didn't read
Such a
it
good
start
book.
to finish, but I was
Yeah.
going back through some things, and that's another thing I learned from some of my mentors. Don't just read the books. You actually devour is actually the term he used. You go through it, you highlight stuff that really strikes you. Sometimes you take notes even. And then later at different times, I've got a bookshelf here, I can show it to you. Uh, but you go back to things and go back to the highlights and the key points and ideas periodically, sometimes months or years later.
Yeah. And review. I mean, we're as humans,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
our focus, our current focus isn't always that which we've read or consumed or devoured
Right.
2 years
Right.
ago. So a
Right.
review, consistent review is super useful for sure. What
Yeah.
other things have you learned from your mentors?
Well, what I've learned is, and like I said, like early on, I didn't have mentors. So I learned that, like, I started in the, the nursery business. I didn't have any mentors at the time, but I just knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I learned by reading stuff and asking a lot of questions. But I was about a year or so into it, and I ran into, and I'm not a big fan of government and government programs. I'm a libertarian. I tell people that all the time on the radio, very much so. But there is one program that did help me. It's called the SCORE program through the SBA. And what it is it's a group of retired business owners who volunteer their time to mentor younger, less experienced business owners. And the program's free for the first year. So I ran into somebody who worked with the SBA, told me about it. I said, oh, that's interesting. They got me a guy who was a retired retail business owner. I had a retail plant nursery at the time, right? And we would meet once a month and have lunch for 2 or 3 hours and go over the books and the plans and just everything about the business. It helped me so much that the second year I paid him, consulting. And then I said, he also actually helped me unwind the business when the Gulf War hit. We had to go through a bankruptcy. And it was through his advice I was able to unwind all that because finances weren't there. As he stated to me, Ference, he goes, you would have survived 2 out of the 3 things. You have 3 things, 3 knocks against you: lack of experience, lack of capital, and also the economy went the wrong way. He said, you would have survived 2 of the 3, but you can't survive all 3. No one can. He says, but the good news is you're young. I was like 27 at the time.
Hmm.
And he goes, and you just got your MBA from the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, I like that. And Jim Rohn was talking to his dad one time, and his dad was, I think, in his 80s when they had this discussion. But he said, Dad, isn't it great? Here it is your birthday again. And this next year, you can use all the experience and knowledge and wisdom you've gained in your entire life, all the years previous to this one, to now
Right.
create the best year ever.
That's awesome.
That's a very empowering, hopeful message that I choose not to forget. That's a good one.
Yes. And so that was my introduction to mentors. And then since then, I've tended to try to gravitate to someone, so I have several different mentors in different areas. So like I have a real estate investor mentor. I've had a financial services mentor over the years. They come and go sometimes, but I have a spiritual mentor. I was talking to him yesterday, by the way. So people that I respect and have more experience. A mentor is learning from a mentor is simply, the way I look at it is you can either learn, and I did earlier in my life, you can learn through the School of Hard Knocks, like I said earlier, and be stubborn,
Mhm.
or wisdom is learning from somebody else's experience.
Yeah, I
Shorten
like
that
that a
curve,
lot.
that learning curve a lot.
That's wild. They say that a stupid man never learns from his mistakes. A smart man eventually does, but a wise man will learn from mistakes and successes of others.
Exactly. Other people, and you won't miss everything, but you'll learn a lot faster. And
Yeah.
it's amazing when you kind of reach out to successful people in various parts of life, how willing many of them are to share their wisdom, because it's so rare for somebody really to ask.
Hmm. Yeah. Why is that? As humans, why is it so rare for us to go out and really want to ask for help? I mean, is it an ego thing, or do you think, or
Well, I can speak for guys particularly. We all know that. We won't ask for directions, right? It's
yeah.
totally ego, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you won't even ask for directions on how to find a house or a business,
Hmm.
why would you ask for directions on how to improve your life?
It's almost reminiscent of like when I was 3 and my parents were trying to teach me to tie my shoes. And I was like, I don't want your help. I want to do it
Right.
by myself like a big
Do
boy.
myself. Yep. I've over the years, so I've had the financial agency for 22 plus years, like I said, and I've trained well over 100 agents, financial folks over those years. And one of these, I see that all the time, some who want help, some who don't. And I said, that's okay. Go on your way until get bashed in the head. You get bashed in the head enough times and hard enough. Eventually they say, okay, I give up. I'm willing to listen now.
Interesting. That's funny.
Yeah.
We all have a story. Mine briefly, up until 2014, I was getting my head bashed in by life repeatedly.
Right.
I was perpetuating ongoing self-imposed suffering through painful moments that I had experienced. And
Right.
my belief system was very limited. And when I finally in 2014 had enough suffering from those few painful moments in life, I started asking different questions like, what can I do to be more? What can I do to get better? What skills do I have to acquire to get what I want out of life instead of suffering and surviving?
And that's
Finances.
that's the beginning of progressing forward. That's where you have to get to that point. Or you just keep struggling.
I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Right?
Exactly. You got to get to that point. And I've learned, like training agents and things like that, people, that you can't, you lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right? You can put the information out there, but you have to wait until they're ready to be sick and tired, being sick and tired, and they're ready to finally listen, especially us guys. It's that ego thing. And I always say, when I would bring in new agents and training and stuff, I always say, give me somebody who's coachable over somebody who has experience and skills. That's a person who's fed up, sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to make it work and learn and listen and learn. And invariably, that person would be the one that would succeed tremendously.
Yeah. I've found that to be true in my life and the lives of so many others.
Yeah. And I think that's why the approach, like you said, how we met, I don't think of myself as a financial person so much, although, I own a financial agency and I work with clients and I recommend financial products and all that. I have for over 20 years. But I really approach it more from an entrepreneurial standpoint because that's my mindset. And I've learned from working with people and clients and agents stuff. Again, you can't lead a horse to water and make them drink. So you have to wait for somebody to be ready. And when they're ready and they start asking questions and listening, that's why I started educating years ago. And I used to teach at college, a top college accredited course on financial literacy. Because I found, in fact, it was funny, my wife used to join me on appointments sometimes, and she's a postmaster's degree with us, human behavior, all this stuff. And she was shocked she goes, Ference, probably 3/4 of your time, you're talking to people about financial literacy rather than actual financial products. I said, you're more of a financial counselor than you are a salesperson. I said, yes, I am. I've learned that I have to help people get their ducks in a row first. Because where have most of us, where have any of us gotten any financial literacy education from?
Watching our parents blunder through life. Basically.
Correct. Our parents didn't get it. Most cases either. We didn't school. They don't teach that stuff, right?
Do you think it's possible that it's designed that way to program us to basically feed a larger system all of our energy and hard work and finances? I mean, instead of really thriving?
Yes. In fact, in my workshops I used to do prior to COVID, one of the statements I would make is about financial literacy. How many people here, I have a room of 100 investors, right? These are people actively investing in various things. And they're spending half a day on a Saturday to learn more. So these are folks that are genuinely interested, right? And so how many of you learned, basic financial literacy skills at home or at school or at work or anywhere else for that matter? And I have one of my agents, she always says she has an MBA, Master's of Business Administration. And she was about a year into her MBA when she asked one of her professors, when are we going to learn about how to start and run a business? Because that's what she was thinking. That's why she wanted to get her MBA. She wanted to be an entrepreneur. And her professor said, we don't do that. We teach you how to manage a business. MBA, that's a common misconception out there. And so my point I say to people all the time is, look, if you get a higher level degree, you'll probably get a higher paying job, but it's still to work for somebody else, right? The system, the education system is designed that way. Where do you go? Where do you go for entrepreneurial school? Have you ever heard of one even? Doesn't exist.
Well, actually, Tom Bilyeu just started an online entrepreneurial university.
Maybe somebody just did, but
Very
you know what
few.
I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a huge need, but
yeah, it barely exists. How's that?
Interesting.
And how do most people learn how to become entrepreneurs? One of two ways. You, like I did, you just have enough determination, you blunder through it, figure it out, hopefully succeed or not.
Try and fail forward, right?
Fall forward, which is what I did with my first business until you manage to find some mentors that might help you fall forward faster.
Yeah.
That's how you learn entrepreneurship.
Wow. That brings up such a great point, that I don't know when it happened, but it almost seems like, and I'm not really big into conspiracy theory or anything, but if there is an underlying conspiracy that was created by a few very intelligent and wealthy people, what a perfect society to be a part of in order to be used to funnel our funds into their pockets in every way.
If you think about it a minute, and again, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist either, but I think it's more of just a practical thing. You own a big business, big corporation. What do you need? Educated workers. Where do a lot of these colleges and stuff get much of their funding from? These big corporations, right? So the funding, the process, the motivation is to turn out higher educated workers for the businesses, for the big business. Look, if you want to go that route, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And you can get your 401k and you're hopefully get some kind of pension or something,
security,
whatever. And work for a company. And for some people, personality wise, it's probably their best direct. They should do that. because they thrive in that type of structured environment. Right.
Interesting.
And I think from what I've seen, and we're again working with people on their finances, like you said, I always say, look, if I'm looking at your financial statements and your tax returns, it's really hard to lie to me. I'm going to see the real deal. What's going on? And what I find is probably 75-80% of folks out there actually thrive in that structured environment. And when they get thrown out of that for whatever reason, the economy, their business, health wise, they really, really struggle because they were taught that all through their whole lives, all the way through school, their adult life, and they don't know how to break free of that and do their own thing and have that self motivation,
self-reliance and independence, and
all that's that. Right. And I think it's it's partially a personality thing. I've always, anytime I ever had a job, and I had a number of them, I skipped over a lot of stuff, but I really I chafed under that. That structure, I was miserable. So if you're one of those people that's miserable through structure, you probably should be an entrepreneur.
John Earl Schoaf was Jim Rohn's mentor, who then mentored Tony Robbins.
Okay.
John Earl Schoaf once said in one of the few recordings that I've been able to find, he was giving a presentation at the White House, actually. He said, far too often our kids and we are taught what to think rather than how to think.
Right.
And I mean, there's some usefulness. It makes sense. We got to socialize. We've got to, kind of go with the flow and not buck the system. Don't ask too many questions, and that way it'll work out better. And we think that's the only way. But as an entrepreneur, that's not true.
No, I've never ascribed to that. And that's why with my radio show, even I talk about all the time is, you got to think about things a little bit. One of the things I say, I learned from Rush Limbaugh, for example, whether you like Rush or not, it's not important. But I learned, he said, if you understand why something the way it is, follow the money. Well, there's a lot of wisdom in that. So a lot of the current events and political things that are going on, things like that, what I try to do is I don't argue with people if I disagree. What I try to do is get them to think about why is it the way it is? Why is this particular leader doing what they're doing, for example? Well, there's a motivation behind it. What is that motivation? Just like we discussed with the education system, right? There's a motivation behind it to teach people how to manage businesses, not run businesses. Why? They need workers. They need better skilled workers, right?
Yeah. The right answer always follows the right question. Those are good questions.
And sadly, in our society, especially today, I feel like there's so much emotion going on out there, people running on emotions and very little actual logic or thought. What I found, though, even with people, and I have some clients who I've said before, I'm very libertarian, I'm a social conservative and I'm a fiscal conservative, libertarian, live and let live, small government, leave us alone, call me a constitutionalist. Okay. That's my stand. And I'm open and honest about that with people straight up. You mentioned something earlier. What I learned is, again, I don't view myself as a salesperson per se. Yes, I am in sales. I get that. But again, I come at it from an entrepreneurial mindset. And my attitude is if I educate people and I'm transparent with them, they're going to more likely listen. And if I educate you, Pete, on how a particular financial tool could benefit you, for example, my attitude is, and I say this in the beginning of all my workshops, you're all big boys and girls. I don't need to shove something down your throat. If I educate you, you'll understand how to use it. Now you're going to buy into it and use it. And I didn't have to sell you, did I?
No. And what happened with us is we implemented something you taught us and it worked. Yeah. So guess who I'm coming to next time I got any questions?
Duh. So I try to meet people where they're at. It's like, okay, and you're not, by far not the only folks I met with where I said, look, I've had people come to me, so I'm ready to invest, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I look at their situation and where they're at, and I'll say, look, there's going to be no product discussion today because frankly, you're not ready. But if you're willing to listen to some steps that you can be, here's a few steps you need to do. And what then happens is then I'm educating, becoming a financial mentor in many ways for a lot of these folks. And like you said, then they come to me, hey, you got a question or need something, who are you going to go to? And I've developed, well, I was asked this the other day, I think in my 22 years, something like over 1,500 clients. Mm-hmm. Now, they don't talk to them all every day or even every year, but some of them I talk to on a regular basis. What I say to them is, look, we used to do yearly reviews, financial reviews, and I found that got to be many times a waste of time. So what I said is, look, you know your financial situation, and when something major comes up or changes or you have a question, then reach out to me. That's when we need to talk. Yeah. Right?
A salesman will look at the end game, which is the sale, but an entrepreneur will look at the fact that it's a lifelong game.
Right. In fact, I've taught, and I've had major financial institutions come have me speak and present on, like at their big annual conferences, on something I'll call the sales funnel. And I know I don't have a visual, but if you think about it, how most people in sales, again, it's a thought to writing a book on this, I just haven't had time. Most people look at you have suspects, right? If you've ever seen the sales funnel, it's a pretty common thing out there. You have suspects, prospects, and then like presentations, and then clients, right? Sort of kind of follows that process. Mm-hmm. And most people's sales funnel looks like a pipe. It's not a funnel, it's actually a pipe. What I mean is they have very few suspects. They suspect they might be interested, and therefore they have very few prospects. They get a few presentations, and that's why they have to do the high pressure tactics, because, well, they got to make all of them all work out pretty much, right? To end up with a few clients, and they push hard. That upsets people. I said, if you want to eliminate stress in your life and be more successful and effective, you've seen an oil filter, right?
Yeah.
It's really big on the top, right? And really small on the bottom. Well, if you focus on increasing your suspects, folks you suspect might be interested. So we have a whole heck of a lot of suspects. You have this great big top end of your filter, right? Your oil, whatever you call it, funnel, the oil funnel.
Yeah.
So you got a whole bunch of suspects, so then you're still going to have quite a few prospects. You're going to end up with more presentation and ultimately end up with more sales, and you don't have to push anyone.
Yeah. It almost seems like when you're under that kind of pressure and stress that you are creating a presentation from a place of fear rather than love and caring.
Right. This allows me, I've had people who review client stuff after and said, you leave more money on the table than anyone I've ever seen, but yet you do more business than anybody I've ever seen. So yeah, because I tell people, look, if you want to do this, it's great. It makes sense. I'll be there to help you and answer your questions. But if you don't, hey, it was great to meet you. I hope if I can help you in the future, let me know. And I don't bug people. You know this. I might send an email out once in a while, just if I haven't heard from you in a while, but it's like, I'm not contacting you every week.
I contact you far more than you contact me. That's the truth.
Frankly, because I have so many suspects, I don't have time.
Yeah.
My radio show reaches something like 250,000 people weekly.
That's insane.
Well, yeah, I mean, literally in the last decade or so. And then when I was doing workshops prior to that, I thought about it. I was presenting to over 1,000 people a year with all the different speaking engagements. Well, if you have 1,000 people plus spending a half a day with you at a workshop, educating about financial stuff, a certain number of those are going to become clients. And you say, and literally, that's why I haven't prospected or reached out to anyone in the last decade, literally, who had basically reached out to me first saying, hey, I'm interested in more info.
Now, you experienced some drastic contrasts and polarities within your life. As a child, you lost your father at the age of 7. You knew what it was like to be poor, knew you didn't like it, knew you wanted the opposite. So you created it, and it took some time and some consistency and years of failing forward, but you're there.
Decades sometimes, yeah.
And now you're empowering others to do the same. I think that everyone experiences contrasts within this life. We
Mhm.
know what we want because we experienced what we don't want.
Right.
And there is some kind of a quote that says something like, you know, money doesn't always equal happiness, but the lack of money will always lead to pain, suffering, and unhappiness.
Pretty much. In fact, it was a few years back. My wife was, she said something which is very, you bet Dawn, she's very astute.
She's
She said,
brilliant.
yeah, even in our, because we invested in real estate back in, starting in '01, did really well with it up until about '08. Of course, in Phoenix, everybody knows what happens. We have nearly $4 million of real estate that went down to about 1.5. We owe 2.5. So we went from about $1.5 million positive to $1 million negative in a year.
That hurts.
Thankfully, yeah. And I met with two bankruptcy attorneys who both advised to file BK, but I couldn't because I still had the financial agency and I would have lost that business or lost control of it. That was my only income left at that point. So we went from doing really well to doing really struggling for quite a few years to get through all that. And that's a whole nother long story. It's no fun, but I learned a lot of ton of financial lessons from that, of course, that I've been able to help people through since. But she said something. She goes, we've had money in our, we've been married over 20 years now. We've had money at times and we've not had money at times. She goes, money doesn't make you happy, but man, it alleviates a lot of stress.
It does.
It removes one
Enjoyment,
source of stress.
pleasure. Yeah. Stepping out of that stressful, fearful place of creation is enjoyable.
but I know many people who are multimillionaires who are supremely unhappy still. So
Committing
having,
suicide, some of them.
yeah,
It's
money
unreal.
isn't going to solve your problems,
Yeah.
but it can be a one source of removal of one area of stress. And if that is your main area of stress in your life, that's why when we met, you mentioned, I kind of like to take a holistic approach with folks. I understand that, yeah, money is important, but it's not the only thing. In fact, many times it's not the most important thing. Your life, your health, your relationships, your spiritual life, all those things are equally, if not more important. And I always talk about a thing called the wheel of life. If you take those areas that you've seen the wheel of life, it's nothing new.
Mhm.
I do it every January on my radio show, first of the year, is if you rate yourself a 1 to 10 on those, I think you and I even discussed that. You rate yourself on a 1 to 10 on those 4 areas, main areas of all our lives. And then let's say you're an 8 in one and a 2 in the other. Well, you got a really bumpy wheel. It's like a flat tire, right?
Yeah. It's unbalanced.
And this is some of the things I shared with you that I think you really appreciated was if the financial side, for example, is the weak area. And let's talk about living a life of balance. Well, a life of balance would have all of them be, but by the way, you'd be better off with all of them twos than having 1 and 8 and another 2. Because if you were all twos, you'd have a wheel that's smooth. And you wouldn't get very far very fast in life, but at least it'd be a lot smoother.
Yeah.
But if you want to improve and you've got an 8 in one area and a 2 in another, what that means is you need to focus more of your energy, at least for a period of time, to bring that 2 up to, maybe a 5 or a 6, even, let's say, to smooth that wheel out a little bit. And the analogy I use all the time is, and I shared this with you, is if you're a big ocean lining ship and you're going across the ocean and you're halfway across the ocean and realize you're off track, you're going the wrong way. You're going to miss the port. What do they do? They spin the wheel and turn the wheel, the rudder, right? What does the big ship do?
Very
Turns
slowly
very
adjusts.
slowly. And you're overcompensating, right? To turn that ship. So, and what a lot of people miss is they get frustrated. How do you overcompensate? Let's say financial is the area you're struggling in. Well, do you need to take a second job for a while? Do you need to work some overtime? Do you need to pick up do something that can bring in some more money, right? Does that mean some time away from the family for a while? Yes. But if you bring your family into it, say, hey, look, we've got a problem here. And dad needs to take the next 6 months and do this, and work some extra hours, or do these extra projects, or whatever it is you can do to bring in some extra dollars. And then at the end of that, when we get it done, we hit this target, we're going to go do something fun or whatever, celebrate, so to speak. You're amazed how the family will jump in and become the support system now. And so I did that, when we were having some of those struggles. I told my wife and girls, hey, Dad's got to work extra. Dad's got to go on an airplane and be in Chicago this weekend because I got to go make some money because we got these problems. But next week we're going to do this, girls. And they would then later, if I wasn't doing something, they knew what the goals were. They knew what was going on, even when they were young. And they would say, well, Dad, are you working today? I'm like, well, why not?
You're not adhering to the strategy we agreed upon.
Exactly. So I'm not saying be out of balance forever.
Yeah.
I'm saying be out of balance with intention to bring things back into balance.
Nice.
Because your wheels, you got a flat tire in your wheel.
Yeah, or a blowout on the freeway going 80.
Well,
yeah.
You can apply that to health. If you've got health issues, you do need to spend extra time, energy, whatever, to get back in shape or healthier or eat right or whatever those things are. Yes. Spiritual relationships. If you have what they always say, if you have a struggling relationship, to mend it, what do you need to do? Spend extra time on it, extra focus, right?
Yeah. Something that you brought up too in the past that I really loved was the strategy that you got to implement on all this hard work, but then there's a certain degree of different types of rewards or awards for the work that you do and for the actual success that you accomplish. Like you structure it in a way that if you do this, then you deserve that.
Right. So this great story. So one of my agents, he'd been in the insurance industry 20 plus years. And he understood goal settings and rewards and all this stuff. But I said to him, and he was struggling. And I said, you haven't gotten your family on board to support you. And he was a very big a family guy. And you haven't really set realistic goals and rewards for those goals. So I said, you should set like a weekly goal. Or some people need a daily goal. I have a daily goal. So there's some things I like to do for fun. I like to play Civ 6, okay? Most of the time I'm too busy, don't have time for that. But if I do what I'm supposed to do, I might take an hour in the evening and play that game. But if I didn't do what I was supposed to do that day, I don't get to do that, right? And the weekends, usually like maybe the family goes out. In fact, that's what we're doing this afternoon. We're going to go out and have one of our favorite hero places, get some heroes. Because I did what I was supposed to do this week. But if I didn't, then the family doesn't get to do that.
And y'all suffer together.
Right. Guess my wife and daughters, I have 2 teenage daughters, we've met. Believe me, they're on my case. Dad, every day they're like, how'd you do today, Dad?
So you hold yourself accountable, but then you've got a system.
You have to have you have to have that support system, because as well-intentioned as we all are, without that support system, somebody you love and respect to hold you accountable, it's so easy to say, I'm really kind of tired today. I'm just going to goof off. Mm-hmm. Right?
I did it a few times this last week myself.
We all do. And no one's perfect. But like say, if you set a realistic goal, like you're 80%, you get done, you set this goal and you get 80% of that done. Okay. You goofed a little, but you did what you're supposed to do. Now you have the reward. You take the family out for lunch or whatever that is. Right. And then I said, you should set, and then in our industry, there's big annual rewards where we get trips and things like that. So those kind of built in if you hit these targets, and those are fun. In fact, every time we go on one of those trips, usually we're driving or flying back usually. And the first question my girls always ask are, so Dad, where are we going next year? It's not a question, are we going to earn the trip? It's where are we going?
That is a better question to ask.
But I told this guy, and I said he had that too, but the annual thing was too big for him. His vision wasn't that far out yet, right? And I said, you probably should set up a quarterly goals, because we talked about what motivated him and all that. He had adult children. They were like late teens, early 20s. And the family loved to go to Vegas and watch Vegas shows and stuff. That was the thing that his family he loved it. His family loved it. That was their thing.
Very cool.
I said, all right, that sounds like a good quarterly goal to me. Why don't you do this much of business? You break it down, you got to talk to X number of people to generate this much in results and this much in commissions and all this stuff. And you hit this target, you do a 3-day weekend in Vegas, because the numbers, made sense. I said, wow, that's great. I never thought of that. Well, he did it. And then he almost made a mistake. He goes, and after 3 months, he was all excited. He made the goal and says, I was thinking about it. I've been working hard. I've got this other stuff. I really should get this done. is kind of giving me a hassle to take off and, a 3-day weekend. I said, no, if you don't go on that 3-day weekend, you will self-sabotage yourself and you'll never do it again. Your subconscious will say, hey, we put in the work, we focused, we got the results, and now you're taking our reward away. Well, heck with you, we're done, we're out of here. You will fail the rest of your life if you don't take that trip. He listened. He calls me in the car on the drive home Sunday afternoon. He said, Ference, that was the best advice anyone's ever given me. We had a great time. And then he holds the phone up and he got 2 kids and his wife. Thank you. This was awesome. We're going to do it again in next quarter. And Chris is going to, and he did. He was successful.
And then enough quarters add up to a successful year.
Yeah, exactly. And then guess what? They were in the Bahamas with us that next
And then
year.
his vision just kept expanding, I'm sure, momentum.
Bingo. So you got to find where somebody's at, what motivates them, can be as little as a daily goal. That's daily and weekly goals is what I started. Went early in my career. My wife we like to go out to dinner, on the weekend sometime. And the thing was, this was before I was eating healthy. It was fat. The rule was back then, if I made one sale that week, we would go fast food, which she didn't particularly like, but that's what it was. And if it was 2 sales a week, we'd go somewhere nice, somewhere decent, sit down restaurant. And if it was 3 sales, pretty much have your pick. We'd go somewhere really nice. And if we didn't get to go somewhere sit down or really nice, I was in trouble.
She
wasn't happy. And if mama wasn't happy, right?
Awesome.
Guess what? And then later, 6 months later, the owner of the company at the time, this is when I was a manager working for somebody else. And he said to me, he goes, I don't know how you did it. I've seen something I've never seen in my career as a business owner. Ference, you've averaged 3 sales a week, every single week for the last 6 months. In fact, you have 0 weeks you didn't get 3 sales. What's your secret? How were you so darn consistent? I've never seen this before. That was the secret.
They say that if you've got a goal or a target to aim at, say you're shooting a bow and arrow or a rifle, you can practice hitting that target every time. But if you've got no target and you're aiming at nothing, you'll hit that every time. Right.
Exactly. So find the target, find the goal. But then the key is find the reward that's comparable, that motivates you. What motivates you? Taking my wife out to dinner motivated me, right? That was the motivator at that time. I have different ones now. We still do some of that, but you see what I'm saying?
And set yourself up for success.
And then bring them in, let them know, educate them on, here's what I'm doing. Here's the plan, and I need your support. It's amazing how your loved ones, people, will jump on board with that and hold you accountable. The people that don't do that, I think they're afraid that if they actually commit to that, then they'll disappoint those that they love. And here's the reality, they don't really want to put themselves out. They lack the confidence to put themselves out there. And I'm like, you know what? You just got to do that. If you want to take your life to the next level, take the next step.
Action is the antidote for despair.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
And to expand into courage and out of fear and begin really creating from a better place, then we've got to do something different. And the better we know, the better we can do. So
right. That's part of being good in the head, right?
Yeah. There you go. Along the lines of momentum, through consistency, I know that Einstein said the 8th wonder of the world is compounding interest.
Yes.
Now, not only with finances, I don't think he was just talking money, interestingly enough. The man was brilliant. Spirituality, communication, relationships, personality, qualities and attributes, skills you want to acquire.
Right.
What are some daily practices that you may have that have empowered you to really step your game up a few notches and create this successful life that you're now living?
Well, like I said, I think it started with the military gave me the confidence that I could, if I set my mind to something, I could do what I could accomplish it. And it's not an arrogance, it's just a confidence.
So doing hard
And
things.
yeah. So, and I always enjoy learning new things, new challenges. To me, I'm just not a structured, that structured life person. I'm more creative. I like to grow, build, expand, learn. And so when I find something that is so like the personal bank concept, previously I started 22, 23 years ago in the financial industry doing annuities and IRAs, 401ks, all the stuff, and we did the dinner seminars and all those things for years, kind of all the stuff that everybody else out there does. And then when I learned about this personal bank concept, which was something that primarily is done by banks and the wealthy and corporate finance boards and all that, I said, this is different. And I understood real quickly that this was something that really enhanced people's lives. But I didn't know much about it. And I was introduced to the idea at the same time as some of my other agents. It was actually the conference we went to. And by lunchtime, I'm over the moon excited about this new idea that I think is going to change my future, our business future, and our clients. And I remember saying that to a number at lunchtime, talking to my other agents who were there, introducing this, for us, new concept. I said, what do you think of all this? And they were like, yeah, it's all right. They were looking at it as more work. I was looking at it as a new opportunity. It's revamped. So you have to have, I think, some enthusiasm about taking on a new challenge, a new experience, a new project, whatever it is. And then I applied the same thing. I said, all right, what do I need to do to set the goals, to learn this and then apply it? So I started setting my daily, weekly, annual goals. And then had put the accountability thing in place, and the same process I've done with everything else.
How would one cultivate enthusiasm?
That's a hard question. I think I've been blessed with, I love learning new things. And so that's part of my personality and stuff.
So that's what lights you up, is excitement about learning new things.
My wife says, I can always tell when you had a good day because I said, yeah, the light bulb came on. I was able to educate somebody and they got it. They understood it. For me, yes, I get paid and all that stuff for doing that stuff. But frankly, my motivator is that. And I think if people, you can't I say this all the time. You've heard this, follow your passion, the money will follow. Mm-hmm. I've never really worried about how much money I made or what I got paid for doing any particular, which I understand is very rare. I've worked with many financial salespeople and all that stuff. I've trained them over the years, and they're always like, they'll ask me, well, what's the commission on this product versus that product? I'm like, I don't know. Why does it matter? Well, I want to know which one I'm going to get paid the most on. I said, well, you're approaching this completely from the wrong perspective, in my opinion.
What's best for the client is
Bingo.
The right question.
If you figure out what's best for the client, and I've taught this for decades, the clients end up taking care of you because they understand you're in it for their benefit. You're doing what's best for them. And sometimes you get paid and sometimes you don't, whatever. You end up getting more because you reap what you sow, right? I just believe in that principle. If I reap a lot of good seed, I'm going to get a lot of good fruit, right?
Yep.
Most people, I don't live that or don't believe that. I don't know how to change that.
So your enthusiasm comes through constantly creating an environment in which you do that which lights you up the most, which is turning other people's light bulbs on and helping them to understand a vision greater for themselves than they can currently see.
It's the Zig Ziglar. If you help enough other people get what they want, eventually you get what you want. That's just always fired me up. I get excited about it. And some of the most fun things I enjoy is working with longtime clients of mine who have made, I'll give you a quick story. I sat down with this couple who were just looking at doing some retirement planning. They were about mid-50s at the time. They wanted to know if they had enough money to retire, and they wanted to look at IRAs and annuities and all these various retirement planning tools. And I looked at them and went through their whole financial stuff. And we're in a nice, beautiful home in North Scottsdale. And they owned some land and they had a rental house that was empty at the time. And I said, and this is one of my statements I say to people all the time. Do you want me to tell you what you want to hear, or do you want me to tell you what you need to hear? And say it with a smile, because I'm testing them. Are they really here for advice, or they just want me to sell them a product? And they looked at me and they looked at each other and like, okay, give it to us. We're ready. I said, you need to sell your house, downsize, and move into your rental. And I know that's harsh, but I've looked at all the numbers and everything else. That is the only way you're going to retire. And you've told me repeatedly that you're sick of working. If you want to stay here, fine, but you're going to be working another 20 years. That's your decision. They looked at each other and they said, wow. The wife in particular says, wow, that was bold, because nobody's ever said that to us. And they met with many different financial people and all this stuff, trying to get advice. What's the best thing to do? And they looked at each other, looked at me and said, you know what? We've been talking about the same thing ourselves. You're dead on right. We know. We've just known, but we've never had the courage to pull the trigger to do what we need to do. Well, they did. They did it. They downsized. They got rid of all their debt. They're living in their rental house. They fixed it all up. It's beautiful now. It's not in a really nice part of town, but it's okay. And that they're the happiest I've ever been. They're retired. They retired at 60. They're happy as clams. I just talked to them again this last week. That was 7 years ago. And every time I talk to them, I say, remember what? Yeah, you were rough on us, but you were right. And my point is, I would rather do that, be honest with somebody and say, look, if this is your goal, this is where you want to get to financially, and you want to do it in a certain time frame, and here's your resources, and here's where you're at. You might have to make some drastic changes to make that happen. How bad do you want that? Or do you want to continue down the path you're at? And there's many people out there I've lost as potential clients because they're not willing to do what they know they need to do. And they keep living the life that they profess to be miserable about, but they keep doing it anyway.
That's easier than stepping into the uncomfortable unknown. It's
right.
Comfortable.
My attitude is, if I'm going to give you financial advice, I'm not there to sell you a product. I'm there to change your life for the better. And if I can't change your life for the better and put you in a better position as a result, then frankly, I'm not interested in having you as a client, because that doesn't fire me up. And I've got this huge funnel of suspects, right? So I say, look, if you want to be a client, great. If you don't, nice. It was pleasant to meet you. Let me know if you can help me, because guess what? The next person is looking for really looking for true answers and advice and change in their life. In fact, I've seen studies show that the number one complaint that people have about their financial advisors is they don't really listen. They don't feel like they're really listening. Like 80% of people feel that way. Well, I just learned, you know what? I'm not going to sell you something if it doesn't apply or it's not going to benefit you. And I'm going to actually listen to you.
Yeah. The question, what do you want? Most people don't know. They lack clarity on exactly what they want. And without that vision to expand into, I
help them clarify that vision. And sometimes the best way, Pete, to get there is you start with, and I get that, I was that way for a while. What don't you want?
Contrast.
Say, okay. They'll say, I don't really know. Okay, let's talk about some things you know you don't want. Like that couple. Well, do you want to work another 5 years? Blank, no, that was their response. I mean, so you're definite on that, right? Yeah. You want to be done by this time. You absolutely. Okay. That's
so through
we got a
defining
starting
what
point.
they didn't want, they then realized what they did want.
Correct. That's what I do with people.
Make a list of everything you don't want. And then make another list after you know that of everything you do want. And what
I got a funny, interesting story on that. It's how I met my wife, Dawn.
Oh, okay.
I had been married young out of college. I had a failed marriage, and I learned a lot from that.
Me too.
And I couldn't say what, people say, well, and I was, back in the market, so to speak. It was interesting meeting somebody. And I would get asked, they had the websites and ask you what you want. I remember saying on my thing was, I don't really have a particular type a hair color. Just, I like someone who's considered pretty. Hey, I'm a guy. Okay. And, I want somebody who, for me, being a Christian was important. And then I wanted somebody, I said, who didn't play any games. I wasn't into the whole, the whole.
Mhm.
So what it was is I identified things that I knew I didn't want. I really couldn't tell you what I did want, but I knew what I did want from my previous experience.
Mhm.
And then I put genuine article was my title. And, and I said, and I said, oh yeah, I finished it off with say, and yeah, I want somebody who's, I want the whole enchilada. I want, all three. 2 out of the 3 is a non-starter for me, right? Non-negotiable. And the last one was, and I want you to be considered pretty because, hey, I'm a guy after all. I got so many people say they don't get responses on, the online websites, the guys particularly. I got slammed with responses from women.
Huh.
They loved it. I mean, I would get response, hey, I'm way out of, I'm way out of your age range or whatever, that kind of stuff. But I had to respond to you because I loved what you said. And that is the most honest and transparent thing I've read in years. Yeah, we know what you guys want.
Isn't that interesting that,
yeah.
I mean, that today still true. My
Yeah.
wife says the most important quality or attribute she ever looks for in anybody, as in any kind of relationship, work, friends, love, whatever, is openness and honesty and transparency.
I say, look, I'm going to share with you who I am, warts and all. And, you can accept that or not. That's your decision.
Yeah.
But this is who I am.
That tells everybody that you love you for who and what you are, period. And that's
I'm on
massive.
the radio today in today's society talking about how I'm in sales, right? I mean, I'm supposed to be attracting clients. Well, guess what? And, you're supposed to, everybody thinks you're supposed to, get them to like you. Well, people like genuineness and being open and honest. That's how, look, I am a libertarian. By the way, my dad escaped Hungary from a Soviet a communist country to come to this land of freedom. I'm first generation immigrant. I love America. I love the land of opportunity. I know a lot of people don't right now. And I'm also served in the military. I said, look, I served in the military to support our freedoms. If you don't like that, well, sucks to be you. And you know what? I even said on the radio, hey, by the way, Merry Christmas to everybody. I know it's not socially acceptable. I'm not saying that to offend anyone. I grew up. That was my experience in life. I love Christmas. I love everything about it. I love the music, presents, and I love all of it. I love the season. And you know what? If you don't, I feel bad for you. I feel sorry for you. I hope you can find some joy. But don't rain on my parade because that's who I am and that's what I love. Okay?
Period.
And I've had a few people come after me on some of those things politically and various things, but generally speaking, I've had most of them come at me, and I've got clients who very much disagree. We don't agree at all politically, for example, but we respect each other, and they respect me. The advice, because they respect the fact that, like you said, I really listen to them, and I really help them identify where they want to get financially. And like they said, even though look, I disagree with everything you stand for politically, but I really appreciate your honesty and your advice, and you listen to me, and I respect you. I said, thank you. And I respect you too. I disagree with everything you stand for. And I'm open. And I say that to them to their face.
Respectfully.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's easy. It is okay. It's okay to be different and unique. And that's what makes this world so much more enjoyable and beautiful and interesting. Exactly. And everybody's in a different place in their journey. We're all going through this life, doing the best we can with what we know. And I like to assume that about everybody, that they're just doing the best they know how to, period.
Right. And if I can help somebody do a little bit better and they're open and willing to listen.
In any area of life.
In any area of life, of course. I'm willing to help them do that. And you're right. It is a bit self-serving in the long run. Because I know if I help somebody, give them some good financial advice, and when they're ready to invest, and who are they going to contact? Obviously, they're going to reach out to me. Yeah. I get it every week. I get folks, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I saw you at a workshop a year ago or 2 years ago or whatever. You gave some advice. It was awesome. I applied it. we knocked down our debt. We did this. It's off. We're ready to invest now and things like that. And we wanted to talk to you. I'm like, awesome. Let's chat. Where are you at? And I just meet them where they're at, and let's just go from there. And my attitude is, the more you build, the more you grow. Obviously, the more I'll make, the more you make, everyone wins. I like win-wins.
Win-win are good. Let's start out with someone who is maybe single with kids or feeling hopeless financially. And sort of take a scenario where, in general, someone's feeling hopeless. What can they start to do in order to expand into an area of life where financially they can begin investing through you?
That's a tough question, Pete, because a lot of it, I mean, just generalize, it's tough. I would talk to that person. And I do have a number of single parent clients or folks who I've worked with, of course, over the years. And it's really, again, I don't know if it's any different than anyone else. It's really about, okay, what are you doing now for, earnings and making a living and things like that. So we start doing some practical things like, what are some things maybe you could do to increase that? Okay. Is there some higher paying position? You can get a promotion. Can you pick up some extra hours? Can you get another degree? Anything, or do you need to do something on the side, like a side business, maybe a side hustle, whatever, to start bringing in some more dollars to start making a difference, right? When you say someone's hopeless, I think what it comes down to is, and we've all been there at different points in our lives, if we don't see a way out, that's where we get frustrated and get hopeless. If we see a light at the end of the tunnel, something we can actually work towards, we start to gain and build confidence and hope. And we tend to move that direction as human beings. So I think what I do for that, I would do that person, whether he's single parent or anything, is let's talk about the things that you can do right now. The other part of it is, and I talk about this all the time too, look, there's actually 3 ways to make more money. You can make more money. You can also spend less. And you also can do some of both. And it's the third way that I tend to work with people the most. To focus on what can we do to earn more and what can we also do to spend less. Like you mentioned, you had some credit card debt and you were paying some interest. And many of these things involving spending, a lot of people think, oh, if I spend less, I've got to cut this out and cut that out and live like a monk. No. Maybe it's like you said, moving your credit card balances from a high interest debt credit card to a 0 interest credit card for a year or so. Well, what did you do? You just saved all that interest on that card, right?
Hundreds and hundreds of dollars a year.
Thousands of dollars even sometimes, depending on the amounts we're talking about. So if you can save yourself a few hundred or a few $1,000s in interest, okay, we're starting to move in the right direction. I had another client, perfect example, brings me to mind, this couple who had gotten some advice, going to some workshops on real estate investing. And the advice of this real estate investor conference was, max out your credit cards and invest in real estate. Folks, that's not good advice.
Yeah.
When I met them, they're nearing 60 and over 100,000 credit card debt. They were getting creamed. And I looked at them. It's another one of those tough conversations. Said, what do you want me to tell you what you want to hear or what you need to hear? And they were like, give it to us. I said, I'm going to give you some advice. Here's how I start. I'm going to give you some advice. You're going to have to do some things, and some of this is going to be significant. If you choose not to listen, here's the number of a good bankruptcy attorney, because that's the next person you need to call. Because that's where they were going. They were losing like $8,000 a month. Negative cash flow. They were going down the tubes.
Wow.
Yeah. So they like, for example, they had purchased a couple of properties from this borrowing, right? And their credit card interest, of course, double digits, like 15, 18%, crazy stuff. Well, I can make 30% return. I said, maybe. I said, but are you going to make it long enough? This project you bought, how long is it going to take? And we talked about all the different things. Well, this one was going to take 2 years before this project would, if everything worked out. I said, you don't have the cash flow to make it that long. You'll be broke in 14 months. That's where they were at. You won't make it long enough. Can you sell that property? Well, if we do, we won't make any money. I said, I don't care. Can you at least get what you put in? Well, yeah, do it. Get out. Get your money, allocate it to what we actually did is we set it up using the high cash value policy to get dividends. We got them like 6% dividends. Then we accessed it through the bank line of credit, like we talk about with the personal bank concept on my radio show. And they were able to pick up 2% positive arbitrage and pay off the debt. So now the debt interest, their 15, 18% debt was gone. Plus they picked up another 2% on that money. So we swung the cash flow situation positive 20% overnight. They went from 8,000 negative to 4,000 positive within 3 months.
Wow, that will
reallocating.
make a difference.
Yeah. In fact, I talked to them also again last week. This is a couple in California, and they've been clients of mine 4 or 5 years now. And she actually was able to go back to work, pick up another job, which also helped. Anyway, the bottom line is they were happy to report that it looks like next year they're going to be able to retire. They'll be 65.
Whereas before, not knowing better and being able to do better with that empowering knowledge, they would have been hosed.
In their early 60s, they would have been filing out bankruptcy and starting over.
Rather than ahead of the game. That is the importance of a mentor right there.
Yeah. And like today, you can imagine, this isn't a client, this isn't somebody I met and sold a product to. This is somebody I worked with through a process. And like they say today, every time if they have a financial question, guess who they call? And they're like, we got to talk to Ference first before we're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a lifelong client. That's a friend.
We've avoided a few really poor decisions by reaching out to you over the last couple of years. And we're ahead of the game now because of it. So thank you so much.
That's what I told you. That's what excites me. So whatever it is that we do, product wise or not, or whatever, the purpose, the goal is to, how can we move you forward in a better way to improve your financial life, which will then overall improve your overall life, right?
Yeah. And what we do well in one area spills over and bleeds over into all other areas of life. You know, what's the number one cause of divorce?
Yeah, finances. Joke I used to say on my workshops all the time. How many times have you, think about it, husbands, you came home from work, the wife's pissed off because there's just too much money in the bank account. It doesn't work that way, right?
Nope.
She's coming home pissed off because she's trying to pay the bills and there's not enough, right?
Yeah.
And now that you got strife, you got stress, you got problems. Well, when you take that off the table, you may still have other issues with your life, but that one's gone. And you're able to focus more on maybe the other things and build a better life.
Yeah. When you're doing something, sometimes without even realizing it, that just leaks energy everywhere without you even being aware of it. That's devastating. I mean, compounding interest, you know?
Yeah.
You build momentum and leaking energy everywhere without even being aware of it. That compounds over the years, magnifies, amplifies, and destroys every other aspect in your life.
Well, that's why we as a company and personally decided 20 years ago not to charge fees. People ask me all the time, how do you get paid? Well, if I recommend a financial product, the company pays us a commission, just like any financial person, right? I don't care what they call themselves or what title they have. If they recommend a product, they're getting paid somehow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most 99% of financial advisors charge fees to the client on top of it. Well, we decided a long time ago not to do that. If I don't charge you 1 or 2% fees, in 10 years, you got 20% more money without compounding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to that, what you're talking about compounding is I'll tell people, don't be discouraged by the acorns. Because acorns grow into oak trees, right?
Produce more acorns, produce more trees.
Right. That 1 or 2% difference might not sound like a whole lot up front, but add a decade to it, or 2 or 3 even. Just that little difference makes a big difference for our clients. That's why they love us. That's why we have like a 98%. Last I checked, we have a 98% 98.7% 5-year retention rate of clients as a company.
That's unreal.
And most of those, over half of those were ones that actually died. They passed away. Okay. So
you once told me a number of people that do the same thing that you do have maybe 7 or 8 clients. You've got how many?
It's common. We're approaching 5,000. As a company, I've probably worked with personally somewhere, I'm guessing, around 1,500 in my career. I probably actively work with probably 300 to 400 folks as we speak, who maybe these are folks I speak to probably at least on a yearly basis or more. But again, as I stated earlier, we used to do yearly reviews. I gave that up some years ago because, again, many of them were just routine. There was really nothing to talk about. Nothing was going on. So I was like, you know what? I review your stuff each year. If everything looks cool and you got nothing going on, I'll shoot you an email and say, hey, everything's good. Looks great. Let me know if you need anything. That's the review.
Yeah. What I see with you is someone who chooses to create an environment where transparency, honesty, commitment, loyalty are key. Mm-hmm. And then you are consistent with your practices. And because of that, people align with what you're putting out there and they're drawn to you, just like I know I was.
Yeah.
And you help every single one of these people. I know this from experience.
Right.
Now, I've learned about your personal banking quite a bit from you. And within a few years, we're going to have our credit card debt completely paid off.
Right.
Which then we'll put all the money towards paying off the Jeep. Yep. And then all we'll have left is the house, at which point we're going to have hundreds of dollars of extra income. And then we can start our own personal bank through you, which from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody can start putting in a certain amount of money monthly.
Right.
And then as that compounds and grows, any point after you've put in $20,000, you can then take that 20,000 out and still be making interest while having no fees.
It's even better than that. So here's one thing I was even going to suggest to yourself. I do this with folks all the time. Most people use what is the personal bank concept first? It's really quite simple. It's a strategic, we use a strategic alliance of a banking product with a insurance product. And the idea is first, it's 2 steps. We set up a high cash value policy. We have companies that are paying 6% dividends even today, have paid dividend rates for us 25 plus years. I'll show you the charts, all the top companies, you'll see who and why. And many of these companies have never missed a dividend since literally before the Civil War. I mean, that's powerful, okay? Then, so it's not the type of insurance policy most people think about. That's the one area
or know about.
Get off. Yeah, they think insurance, that's a bill. No, we're doing it to build cash. There's a small amount of insurance, it's mostly cash. The second step is we set up a bank line of credit. We have banks that'll do a line of credit with the cash and the policy is used as a collateral. The rates of the dividends, I told you earlier, we got companies paying up to 6% dividends even today, and the rates the banks are charging is between 3 and 3.95. So, Pete, if you're earning 6% dividends and you access the funds and they charge you 3 to 3.95, what's your money doing?
Still growing.
Yeah, you're still picking up that piece, the difference, 2-3% positive arbitrage, which is what that is. But here's the key point, Pete, and I share this with everybody. If you get this one point right here, you get the whole thing. And it's this. That 2 or 3% positive arbitrage you repeat is on money you spend. Right? See, if you put in the policy and let it grow, it sits there and grow, yeah, you make the 6% dividends or whatever, right? But if you then access it through the bank line, let's say you pay off a bill, as you mentioned, credit card debt, cars, houses. What if you want to take the money and buy something? Or what if you want to take the money and invest in something? Well, it doesn't matter. You're still picking up the positive arbitrage, right?
Yep. Still growing.
Now I'm going to do you one better. There's some things that have improved even since you and I spoke recently last time. We can start getting some positive arbitrage now on these day one. We don't need the 20,000 minimum anymore. So my suggestion, for folks is if you are paying off some bills, debt, knocking off debt or whatever. Obviously, you can continue to do that, or you could put it in the policy, get some dividends. Like I said, today you're going to get 5.75 to 6%, just so you know, and then access it through the policy directly and still get some at a lower rate and still get some positive arbitrage. Once you hit that 20,000 rate, then they'll be able to drop the rate further. And once you hit, by the way, once you get higher than that, we can drop it even further. So you get more and more positive arbitrage as you accumulate cash. What does that do? It pays off your bills faster. It accelerates the debt payoff process, right? Or if you're a person who is looking to buy something, I have this question all the time. Let's say you're going to go buy a car and you have a choice, right? You can pay cash or you can finance it, right? Let's assume your car payment, if you finance, let's say it's 5% interest. All right. You could finance the car and pay the 5% interest. Or you could take the money you were going to make on the payments plus a little bit extra, throw a little bit extra into the policy. You get the dividends, you access it through the bank line, and you pick up a couple of percent positive arbitrage. What does that do to the cost of borrowing?
Alleviates it.
Drops it. So instead of having a 5% loan, you get a 3% loan, net effect, right?
Yeah.
Did you pay less interest? Yes.
Most people don't have a 5% car loan either.
Well,
I remember doing a 24% car
well,
loan.
yeah.
But
I mean, if you have good credit today, you can get a 5% car loan.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I have a guy that just did that. He bought a $100,000 RV. You got a 4.75, great credit, great situation, 4.75 interest rate. But instead of making the payments directly to the lender, he put this money in the policy, accessed it from the bank line, and then he's making his payments and he's picking up 2% positive arbitrage.
So he's getting ahead.
So now instead of paying 4.75 interest, he's paying 2.75 interest, isn't he?
Yeah.
I have another couple comes to mind, just did this a few months ago, refied their house at 3.25, 30-year fixed mortgage, good credit, all that. They're putting the money in the policy, they're accessing it from the bank loan. And because of the amounts we're talking about here, they got qualified for the 3% rate at the bank. So their positive arbitrage is 3% now. They're making 6, getting charged 3. I told you earlier, Pete, their interest rate on their mortgage is 3.25, right? So what's their net effect of their interest rate on their house? 0.25%.
Yeah.
We calculated out based on the 30-year mortgage, they're going to save over $250,000 of interest.
And then what can they do with that besides just throw it out the window?
They were going to pay it anyway, right? And we're going to make the house payment. And I asked them a real simple question. Do you want the $250,000 in your pocket, or would you want to give it to the lender?
Yeah.
That's
wow.
So more, I always tell people, look, if you want more information on this, there's 2 great places to go. My website is yourpersonalbank.com. I mentioned earlier, I do a radio show on, do it twice weekly on Money Radio, which is 15:10 a.m. And I also on 960 The Patriot, which is 960 a.m. I'm actually on Tuesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays on both of these stations. But if you go to yourpersonalbank.com, the website, you can go to any of the previously recorded shows and listen to any of the radio shows that I've done anytime you want. They all have various topics where I talk about how to accelerate debt payoff, how to purchase, how to reduce borrowing costs, how to, all these various things we've talked about. It's all there. Mm-hmm. Plus some political stuff, because I'm talking about, what our government's doing recently is going to impact our money in terms of our ability to make it, keep it, and pass it on.
Yeah. And the better we know, the better we can do. Yeah.
Things like inflation are going to, the amount of money our government has spent, this isn't political, this is just math, this is facts. Mm-hmm. You can't spend $6 trillion, which is what our federal government has done over the last year roughly, and not have consequences. Some of those consequences are going to be higher taxes. The Biden administration is talking about that repeatedly, and higher inflation. What do you do? So I have shows dedicated to those very things. Because this is incredibly important. I have a contractor client of mine the other day, literally said to me, he asked me this question, he said, last year I bought a sheet of plywood at Home Depot for $9. That same sheet of plywood today is a year ago. Today is now 43. Folks, that's inflation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Passing the
It's
cost
already
along
up.
to all of us.
Yes, businesses don't pay that. You pay if you're building a house or expanding something or adding on, or
Yeah.
you're paying that cost, not the contractor, not Home Depot. Okay. So I do a lot of financial literacy stuff where I even pointed out, I know this isn't popular, but I've never strove to be popular. That's not my goal. Like I said, whether you received the $1,400 checks that were sent out recently, I know or not, I didn't, but I know a lot of people did. I know it was popular. I was very, very disappointed that it was actually popular. Now I getting a check in the mail. That's cool. That's fine. I mean, we all like a check in the mail. But again, it goes back to thinking for a minute. Where did the check come from? And the check came from the government. Now, does the government have any money?
They got a lot of debt.
The government has no money, period. How do they get it? They take it from somebody through taxes, or they print more. Both have an impact. If you tax somebody more, that's going to impact the economy, jobs, and all that stuff. If they print more, we're going to have more inflation. These are
Neither
basic,
one of which are good for us.
And here was my statement. In the next few years, whether you got the $1,400 check or not, we all are going to pay far more than $1,400 in higher costs of goods and services. And I'm talking about things like food, housing, clothing. I just saw a study. Beef is up 40% already nationally.
Good time to become a vegetarian.
There you go. Unfortunately, the veggies are going to get more expensive too. It's just inflation, right? We are all going to pay that. So how do we address, what do we do? How do we address that? Go to yourpersonalbank.com. I've got whole shows on what to do for upcoming higher taxes and inflation. What steps do we need to start taking today to prepare ourselves for these things that are going to happen, folks? They're just going to happen. So that's the kind of stuff I do.
So, entrepreneur, educator, strategic alliance opportunity is what I see in you. I really appreciate your time today and our friendship. The connection that we've made has been hugely impactful and beneficial for us, not only financially, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I mean, you've got a lot of resources within you. You've got a beautiful family, and I appreciate our connection. Thank you so much, Ference.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
For those of you who are listening to this through YouTube, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, share this content with as many people as you can, especially upgrading opportunities like this. I mean, who doesn't want more money in the bank? Who doesn't want the problem of a wife who's angry because we come home from a long day work and there's just too much darn money in the bank? Check out the website, goodinthehead.com. It's something that is a passion project of mine and will be the rest of my life. It's something that lights me up. I don't make any money there. It's basically a source of information and upgrading possibilities for every aspect of anyone's life. People that are hopeless, destitute, devoid of any kind of happiness go there, and they many times find what they need. And that's something I'm proud of. The experience of contrast and polarities is really useful. And to go through difficulties and devastating situations is an upgrading and empowerment opportunity. We all go through difficult times. Ference, you're a perfect example of what it's like to take that information and that data and that constant feedback and build something even better with it. So thank you so much for your example and for all of your motivation and inspiration.
It's been a pleasure.
I invite people to go to his website, which will be in the comment section below, and contact him, get with him, seek him out as a mentor and a friend, and expect honesty and transparency and openness. And he's someone who I highly regard as someone who will give you what you need, and not necessarily what you want, but what you need to really get going in your own life. So
thank you, Pete.
Please tell your wife and daughters hello, and I look forward to the next time we get to see each other and hang out.
Likewise. Talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good, Ference. Have a good rest of your afternoon, man.
You too. Thanks. It was great.